Have you ever seen a woman smile on the outside while her heart bleeds inside? Have you ever seen a womb that refuses to answer, no matter how many years pass? This is the story of Lami, a woman whose tears became the song of the river. Let me tell you about a woman named Lami, from the village of Umudike, a small place where the people's lives were tied to the land, the seasons, and the whispers of the gods. Lami was beautiful, the kind of beauty that made men stop on the road and women look twice. She had a voice as soft as a dove's and hands skilled in cooking, farming, and weaving. But in Umudike, beauty alone was not enough to earn respect. In our land, a woman's worth was often tied to the sound of children running around her home, and this was where Lami's story began to hurt. She had been married to Oba, a proud and hard-working man, for 12 years, yet her womb remained silent. 12 planting seasons came and went. 12 harmattans dried the rivers. 12 rainy seasons filled the streams, and still, no cry of a child came from Lami's hut. At first, the people whispered softly, "Ah, maybe it is not yet her time," but as the years stretched on, the whispers grew louder. Her mother-in-law began to spit venom whenever she visited. "You are eating my son's food for nothing," the old woman would snap. The villagers laughed behind her back. "What use is a pot that cannot hold water?" they mocked. Even little children repeated the insults they heard at home. Oba tried to defend his wife in the beginning, but over time, even his patience began to thin. He started coming home late, avoiding her eyes, and sometimes sleeping in another hut. Lami's heart grew heavier with each passing day. She smiled in the marketplace, but at night she wept silently into her pillow. One market day, as Lami sold her baskets, she overheard two women gossiping near her stall. Don't waste your time praying for her. That one's womb has been sealed by the gods themselves," one woman said. Another laughed. "Maybe she offended the river goddess, who knows?" Those words stayed in Lami's mind like a seed that refused to die. The river goddess. Could it be true? Could the goddess be the one holding back her child? That night, Lami lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her mud hut. Her heart was pounding as if something was calling her, pulling her towards the river that lay beyond the forest. By dawn, she had made up her mind she would go and beg the goddess herself. If the villagers thought she was cursed, she would go to the source of the curse and plead for mercy. On the third night, when the moon was bright and the crickets were singing, Lami wrapped herself in a dark cloth and slipped quietly out of the village. She carried a small calabash filled with palm oil, kola nuts, and white cloth, the only gifts she could think of for a goddess. The forest path was cold and damp under her bare feet. The trees seemed to whisper as she passed, and the wind carried strange sounds. By the time she reached the riverbank, the moonlight shimmered on the water like silver. She knelt at the edge, placed her offerings in the water, and began to speak with a trembling voice. "O great mother of the river, I am Lami, the barren woman of Umudike. My womb has been silent for 12 years, and my heart is heavy. If I have offended you, forgive me. If you are the one holding my child, please release him to me." The river was silent for a moment, and Lami began to think she had wasted her time. But then, the water rippled though there was no wind. A soft humming filled the air, and a figure rose slowly from the depths. She was beautiful and terrifying all at once, skin like polished bronze, hair flowing like water, eyes glowing like the moon. Her voice was both sweet and commanding. "Lami of Umudike, I have heard your cry." Lami fell on her face in fear. "Great mother, please have mercy on me." The goddess smiled faintly. "I will give you what you desire. Your womb will carry the most charming boy this village has ever seen. But there is a price. When the boy becomes a man, he will return to me. He will marry me and live with me forever." Lami's heart pounded. She thought of the shame she had endured, the insults, the loneliness. She thought of holding her own child. In that moment, the price felt small compared to her pain. "I agree," she whispered. The goddess extended her hand, touching Lami's forehead. A strange warmth filled her body. "It is done," the goddess said, and with that, she sank back into the water, leaving only ripples behind. Lami returned to the village before dawn, her heart trembling with both fear and hope. 3 moons later, she missed her monthly flow. The barren woman of Umudike was with child. When a barren woman carries a child, the whole world feels her joy. But sometimes, blessings can come wearing the mask of a bargain, and the price may not be paid until the drums have stopped beating. The news spread faster than the harmattan wind. Lami was pregnant. At first, people thought it was just a rumor. But when her belly began to round like the full moon, the same mouths that had mocked her now praised her. She is a strong woman, the market women whispered. It is a miracle, the elders declared. Even her mother-in-law, who had once spat at her feet, now came to her hut with palm wine and goat meat, saying, "My daughter, forgive my foolish tongue." Oba, her husband, changed overnight. The man who had once avoided her now became her shadow. He fetched water for her, cooked her meals, and proudly told anyone who would listen, "My wife is carrying my child, the child we have waited for 12 years. But while the village danced and sang, Lami kept one secret locked in her heart, the bargain she had made at the river. Sometimes at night, she would wake up sweating, remembering the goddess's voice. "When the boy becomes a man he will return to me." She told herself it was too far away to worry. What mattered now was that she was finally going to be a mother. The day of her delivery was like a festival in Umudike. The midwives filled her hut, the drums echoed in the distance, and the smell of cooking filled the air. After hours of labor, a cry pierced the room, loud, strong, and beautiful. "He's a boy," one of the midwives shouted. When they brought the child to her, Lami gasped. He was the most beautiful baby she had ever seen, skin smooth as fresh palm oil, eyes bright like the river on a sunny day, and a smile that made her forget all her pain. She named him Lucas. From the moment he opened his eyes, it was as if the entire village fell under his spell. Women wanted to carry him. Men wanted to protect him. Even the chief would stop and pat his head when they passed. Lucas grew faster than other children. By the age of 3, he could speak fluently. By 5, he could sing like a bird. By 10, he was already the pride of Umudike, strong, handsome, and clever. But Lami began to notice something strange. Whenever Lucas played near water, whether it was the village stream or a rain puddle, he would stand still, staring as if he could hear someone calling him. Sometimes she would find him talking to himself by the riverbank. "Who are you speaking to, Lucas?" she would ask. He would smile and say, "Just a friend, Mama." One evening, when Lucas was about 12, they attended a village feast. Girls from nearby villages came to dance, but as soon as they tried to talk to Lucas, something strange happened. One girl suddenly screamed and ran off, claiming her skin felt as if it was burning. Another said she heard a voice warning her to stay away from him. The villagers laughed it off as childish play, but Lami's heart began to race. She remembered the goddess's promise, and the way she had looked at her the night they met. The goddess had not forgotten. From that day, Lami started to grow restless. She became overly protective, chasing away any girl who came near Lucas. She told herself she was doing it to protect him, but deep down she knew she was trying to delay the goddess's claim. Years rolled by like the river's current. Lucas became a young man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. But no matter how many girls admired him, none stayed close for long. It was as if an unseen hand pushed them away. One night, as Lami prepared dinner, she heard Lucas speaking softly outside. She peered through the window and saw him standing by a bowl of water, whispering. The water rippled, even though there was no wind. That night, she could not sleep. The bargain she had made was no longer a distant shadow, it was standing at her door. They said when the river wants to claim what belongs to it, the waves do not knock softly, they crash without mercy. That was the season when Lucas first felt the hand of the river goddess upon his life. It began during the festival of New Yams. The village square was alive with colors, women in bright wrappers, men in flowing agbatas, the smell of roasted yam and palm oil in the air. Dancers stomped their feet in rhythm with the talking drums, and the air was thick with laughter. Lucas had grown into a man now tall as a palm tree, strong as the Iroko, and handsome enough to make young girls hide their smiles behind their wrappers. That evening, a group of maidens from a neighboring village arrived, each hoping to catch his attention. One of them, Adora, was bold. She walked up to Lucas with a bright smile. "Will you dance with me?" she asked. Lucas smiled politely and took her hand. But the moment their fingers touched, Adora gasped and snatched her hand away. Her eyes widened in fear. Something just whispered in my ear," she stammered, clutching her chest. "It said, leave him. He is not yours." The music stopped. People gathered, murmuring. Adora's friends pulled her away, their eyes darting towards Lucas as if he carried a curse. That night, 3 other girls who had been laughing with Lucas suddenly fell ill. They complained of headaches and strange dreams of a woman with hair like flowing water and eyes like the moon. The woman's voice kept saying the same thing. He belongs to me. The elders grew uneasy. Perhaps the boy is under some spiritual bondage, they whispered. Perhaps the gods are warning us. But Lami dismissed them, her voice sharp. Lucas is fine. Leave my son out of your gossip. Yet in her heart, fear not at her. She remembered her promise, the one she had made on her knees by the river years ago. She had thought she could outwit the goddess by keeping Lucas away from women. But the goddess was patient, and patient hunters never lose their prey. One evening, Lucas returned from the farm earlier than usual. He seemed distracted, his eyes far away. "Mama," he said softly, "do you believe that dreams can be real?" Lami froze. "What kind of dreams?" she asked carefully. "I keep seeing a beautiful woman standing in the middle of a river. She calls my name, over and over. And each time I try to walk towards her, the water parts for me." Lami's hands trembled as she served him food. "Dreams are nothing, my son. Forget them." But Lucas didn't look convinced. That night, Lami could not sleep. Every creak of the wind sounded like footsteps. Every rustle of the trees sounded like the river's call. She got up, lit a small lamp, and began to pray in whispers, begging the ancestors to protect her son. 3 days later, the danger became real. Lucas had gone to fetch water from the river. When he didn't return, Lami's chest tightened. She ran down the forest path, her feet barely touching the ground. At the riverbank, she found him standing ankle-deep in the water, his eyes half closed, as if in a trance. The river's surface shimmered unnaturally, and a faint humming filled the air. "Lucas!" she screamed, grabbing his arm. He blinked rapidly, looking confused. "Mama, she was right there," he whispered. "She said she has been waiting for me." Lami didn't wait to hear more. She dragged him away from the water, her heart pounding. But as they left, the river behind them rippled, and for a moment, she thought she saw a woman's face smiling up from beneath the surface. That night, as the moon hung low and pale, Lami sat by the fire, staring into the flames. She knew now without doubt the goddess had started her hunt. And if she didn't act fast, she would lose her son forever. But how do you fight a goddess whose patience is older than the trees and whose reach is as wide as the river? When a spirit has marked someone, even the strongest charms can fail. And when love tries to bloom under the gaze of a jealous goddess, it withers before the sun can touch it. After the incident at the river, Lami tried to keep Lucas far from water. She sent others to fetch water for the house, told him to avoid the river path, and even forbade him from attending fishing festivals. But Umudike was a village built beside the river. Water was life here. And a goddess does not need your permission to reach into your dreams. Lucas was 18 now, a man by all standards. He was strong in the farms, quick with his hands, and gentle in speech. Girls from nearby villages still tried to get close to him, but their efforts always ended in fear. One dry season, Chica, the daughter of a wealthy palm wine tapper, decided she would win Lucas's heart. She had heard the rumors but laughed them off. "No spirit can take what I claim," she boasted to her friends. She began visiting Lami's compound with cooked meals, always finding excuses to talk to Lucas. Slowly, he began to smile more around her. Lami noticed this and her stomach tightened with dread. Then came the evening that silenced the village. Chica and Lucas had been walking home from the market when a sudden mist rose from nowhere. The air grew cold, and Lucas felt a strange pull towards the river path. He stopped walking, his eyes glazed over. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Chica frowned. "Hear what?" Before she could say more, a tall, beautiful woman appeared ahead, her feet resting lightly on the surface of the river as if it were solid ground. Her hair flowed like water, and her eyes glowed like the moon. Chica froze. The woman's gaze turned towards her, and in that moment, she felt as if icy hands had gripped her heart. Her knees buckled. A voice rang in her head, "He is mine. Leave or be gone forever." Chica screamed and collapsed. Lucas rushed to her side, but the moment he looked back towards the river, the woman was gone, and the mist was fading. By the time they reached the village, Chica was trembling, her face pale. She refused to speak of what she saw, only repeating over and over, I can't go near him again." Within days, she left the village without saying goodbye to anyone. The story spread quickly. Mothers began warning their daughters to stay far from Lucas. Some even crossed the road when he passed, whispering that his shadow carried a curse. Lucas began to feel the weight of isolation. Friends stopped inviting him to gatherings. Girls avoided his eyes. He would sit alone in the evenings, staring at the moon's reflection in his water bowl, feeling an ache he could not explain. One night, he confronted his mother. "Mama, what's happening to me? Why do people act as if I'm cursed? Why do I keep dreaming of that woman?" Lami's lips trembled. The truth burned on her tongue, but fear held it back. "My son," she said, forcing a smile, "some things cannot be explained. Just trust me, stay away from the river." But Lucas was no longer a child. And a seed of suspicion had begun to grow in his heart. The goddess, it seemed, was no longer content with whispers and warnings. She had started removing any obstacle between herself and Lucas. And Lami knew it was only a matter of time before the goddess came for him completely. "My children, secrets are like clay pots hidden in the earth. One day, the rain will wash the soil away, and the pot will be exposed." Lucas had lived in the shadow of a secret all his life, but the wind had begun to blow, and the soil was loosening fast. After Chica's sudden disappearance, Lucas could no longer ignore the whispers. Everywhere he went, conversations stopped abruptly. Men looked away. Women avoided his touch. Even children sometimes stared at him with fearful curiosity. One evening, while helping Oba repair a broken fence, Lucas overheard two elders talking near the palm trees. "That boy, it is not ordinary," one said. "They say a spirit marked him at birth." The other replied, "I heard his mother went to the river before she conceived. What she gave in exchange only the gods know." The words hit Lucas like a spear. He didn't finish helping with the fence. Instead, he walked away, his mind burning. Could it be true? Was his mother hiding something from him? The next morning, Lucas decided to get answers. He went to Mama Nakuru, the oldest woman in the village. She was known for her sharp memory and her refusal to hide the truth, no matter how bitter. "Grandmother," Lucas greeted, bowing slightly. She looked at him with her clouded but sharp eyes. "Ah, Lucas, the river's child." Lucas's heart jumped. "What did you call me?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Your mother went to the river before you were born. She begged the goddess for you. But the river does not give without taking." Lucas's chest tightened. What did the goddess want in return? Mama Nakuru only shook her head. "That, my son, you must ask your mother. But remember, the river never forgets its debts." That night, Lucas confronted Lami. "Mama," he said, his voice firm, "tell me the truth. Did you go to the river before I was born?" Lami froze, the wooden spoon in her hand falling to the floor. Her eyes filled with panic. "Who told you that? So it's true." Lucas pressed. She grabbed his hands, tears filling her eyes. "Lucas, I only wanted to give you life. I begged the goddess for you, but what?" he demanded. She looked away. "You're not ready to hear the rest." Her refusal only deepened his suspicion. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He had to know the full truth, and if his mother wouldn't tell him, he would find it himself. The following day, Lucas went to the river alone. The air was thick with the scent of water lilies, and the surface was calm, reflecting the afternoon sun. He knelt by the edge and stared into the rippling water. At first, there was nothing. Then, like a shadow emerging from the deep, the goddess appeared. Her beauty was even more breathtaking up close, skin glistening like wet bronze, eyes glowing softly, lips curved in a faint smile. "Lucas," she said, her voice like a song. He swallowed hard. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" Her smile deepened. "I am the one who gave you life. You are mine, and soon, you will return to me." Lucas's heart pounded. "Return to you? Why? You were promised to me before your first breath. When you are of age, you will be my husband and live in my kingdom forever." He staggered back, the words striking him like thunder. No, I belong to no one." The goddess's eyes darkened, though her smile remained. "You may resist, but the river's tide always pulls what belongs to it." She raised a hand, and for a moment, the water surged forward, wetting his feet though he was far from the edge. Lucas turned and ran all the way home, his heart pounding with fear and disbelief. That night, he could not eat. His mother's silence was now unbearable. He knew two things for certain: the goddess would not stop, and his time was running out. What he didn't know was that she had already decided, the next time she came for him, she would not leave empty-handed. Our elders said a hunter may stalk the forest quietly, but when the trap snaps shut, the prey has no time to run. That was the night the goddess decided that patience was no longer her friend. The rains had come early that year. For 3 days and nights, the river near Umudike swelled, its current roaring louder than the talking drums at a wedding. The villagers kept their children indoors, warning them not to play near the banks. On the 4th night, the storm calmed, but the air felt strange. Heavy. Expectant. Lucas had been restless all day, pacing the compound like a trapped bird. When the moon rose, he stepped outside to breathe. The ground was still damp from the rain, and the night air was cool against his skin. That was when he heard it. A soft humming. Sweet, melodic, yet chilling. It came from the direction of the river. "Mama," Lucas called, but Lami was asleep in the inner room. Against his better judgment, he followed the sound. His feet moved as if the ground itself was guiding him, every step drawing him closer to the glistening river. When he reached the bank, the moonlight shimmered on the water, and there she was, the river goddess. She was dressed in flowing white that seemed to be made of mist itself. Her eyes glowed with longing. "Lucas," she whispered. He froze, his heart hammering. "I'm not yours," he said firmly. She tilted her head, her smile deepening. "Do you think you have a choice? Your life began with my gift. Now it will return to me." She raised her hand, and the water surged forward like living hands, wrapping around Lucas's legs. The cold shot through his bones. He tried to move, but the water held him firm, pulling gently at first, then harder. Back in the hut, Lami woke with a start. She had dreamt of the river swallowing her son whole. Without thinking, she grabbed a calabash of alligator pepper, some white chalk, and ran barefoot through the wet grass. When she reached the river, her heart stopped. Lucas was knee-deep, struggling, his hands clawing at the air. The goddess was smiling at him, the water pulling him in. "Let him go," Lami screamed. The goddess turned her gaze on her. "You made the promise, Lami of Umudike. Do not fight the tide." Lucas's head snapped towards his mother. "What promise?" Tears blurred Lami's vision. "Lucas, I begged her for you. She gave you to me on one condition, that you would return to her when you became a man." Lucas's eyes widened in shock and betrayal. "You sold me." "No," Lami cried. "I only wanted a child. I thought I could find a way to break the promise before the time came." The goddess's voice cut through their exchange. "The time is now." She raised her other hand, and the river rose higher, swirling around Lucas's waist. But Lami was not ready to give up. She sprinkled alligator pepper into the water, chanting words she had learned from the village priestess long ago. The river hissed as if in pain, and for a brief moment, the water loosened its grip. The goddess's eyes narrowed. "You dare defy me?" Lucas stumbled back onto the bank, gasping. But the goddess's figure began to rise taller, the water forming into towering waves behind her. "This is not over," she warned. "The river always takes what belongs to it." And with that, she vanished into the depths, the surface becoming still once more. Lucas sat on the wet grass, breathing hard. His eyes met his mother's. "You should have told me." Lami's tears fell freely. "I was afraid, but now, we must find a way to break her hold, or she will come again, and next time, we may not be fast enough." The sound of the river's rushing current seemed to carry the goddess's laughter into the night. "Now listen, for what I am about to tell you is the part of the story where the river's shadow grew longer over Lucas's life, and every heart in the village began to pound with fear. When Lucas turned 25, he was the pride of his mother, Lami. His shoulders were broad, his jaw strong, and his smile so bright it could melt the heart of even the coldest maiden. The women in the village whispered his name like a sweet song. Yet, strangely, no girl who came near him stayed for long. It started with Abike, a gentle and beautiful girl from the next village. She met Lucas at the market one sunny morning, and their laughter could be heard as far as the palm grove. But 1 week after their meeting, Abike woke up screaming in the middle of the night, saying she had seen a woman with glowing eyes and hair made of flowing water standing by her bed. The woman whispered, "He is mine." The next day, Abike's family took her far away, and she refused to speak of Lucas again. Then came Adama, a proud and lively girl who believed no spirit could scare her. She told her friends, "What can a river goddess do to me? She should try and see." That very night, her family heard the sound of rushing water flooding their compound. But when they came outside, there was no water, only Adama lying on the ground, her body trembling and her lips whispering, she came for me. Word began to spread like wildfire. Any girl who tried to be with Lucas would be cursed. Lucas himself did not understand what was happening. He would smile and speak kindly to the girls, but one by one, they ran from him as if chased by a lion. The young men of the village began to laugh behind his back, calling him the lonely prince, while the elders shook their heads and said, "The river takes what it owns." Lami tried to comfort her son. "Do not worry, Lucas. The right woman will come." But in her heart, fear gnawed at her like a rat. She remembered her promise to the river goddess, the promise she had buried deep in her heart, thinking it would never matter. One night, Lucas came to her, his eyes dark with worry. "Mother," he said softly, "do you know why no woman will stay with me?" Her hands froze where she was pounding yam. "No, my son," she lied, her voice trembling. But Lucas was not satisfied. "Then I will find out myself," he declared. And so, my children, without telling anyone, Lucas decided to test his fate. He courted another girl, a stranger passing through the village. She was fearless, for she knew nothing of his strange curse. They met under the moonlight, laughing and sharing stories, and for the first time in years, Lucas felt hope blooming in his chest. But that night, oh, my children, the river goddess herself rose from the water. Her voice was like the rumble of thunder, and her eyes blazed like the moon. She stood between Lucas and the girl, her long fingers dripping water as she reached out. The girl's scream split the night. By morning, she had vanished, leaving only a trail of wet footprints leading toward the river. From that day, the villagers began to whisper another name. For Lucas, the man no woman can touch. And deep inside, the river goddess was growing impatient. The village was unusually quiet that night, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. I, the storyteller, tell you now, this was the night that would change everything for Lami and her beloved son. Lucas had been restless all week. He spent most evenings sitting alone under the giant baobab tree near their hut, staring at the moon. His heart longed for love, yet every time a girl came close, tragedy followed. The river goddess's unseen hands had scared away every maiden, leaving Lucas with only unanswered questions. On this night, as the moon hung low and golden, a strange figure appeared from the path leading toward the river. She was unlike anyone Lucas had ever seen, tall, graceful, and dressed in a gown that shimmered like flowing water. Her hair cascaded down her back like strands of midnight silk, and her eyes held a depth that could pull any man into a world of secrets. "Lucas," she called softly, her voice carrying a melody like the river's gentle waves. He rose to his feet, startled. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" She smiled, a smile both tender and dangerous. "I've always known you, Lucas. I am Nairai. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Lami, who was inside cooking, heard nothing of this. Lucas, however, felt an unexplainable pull toward this mysterious woman. Her presence felt familiar, yet terrifying. He tried to speak again, but his words tangled in his throat. "You are lonely," Nairai whispered, stepping closer. "Every girl who tried to love you has been taken away. Do you not wonder why?" Lucas's breath caught. I don't understand. Who are you really?" Her smile faded, replaced by an intensity that made the night air feel heavy. "I am the one your mother made a promise to, the one she betrayed." Lucas staggered backward. "The river goddess." "Yes," Nairai said, her voice echoing like ripples across still water. "When your mother cried by my river, I gave her you a gift. But she promised you would be mine when you came of age. She broke that promise. And now I have come to claim what is mine." Lucas's mind spun. He wanted to run, to scream, but his feet felt rooted to the earth. "I am not yours," he said through clenched teeth. Her expression softened again, almost pleading. "Come to the river, Lucas. It is where you belong. There is a kingdom beneath the waters waiting for you, a place where no one will mock you, where no girl will ever fear you." Lucas felt torn. The goddess's words were tempting, but the thought of leaving his mother broke his heart. Still, her eyes held a strange power, and he could feel the pull growing stronger with each passing second. The wind picked up suddenly, whispering through the trees. Nairai's gown shimmered brighter, almost glowing. "Tomorrow night," she said, "I will return. And when I do, you must decide, live in my world or perish in yours." With that, she turned and walked toward the river, her form slowly dissolving into mist until she was gone. Lucas stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. And inside the hut, Lami stirred her pot of soup, completely unaware that the very thing she had feared most was now standing at her doorstep. The harmattan wind blew hard that morning, carrying with it the scent of dry leaves and dust from the farmlands. I remember the day so well because the village seemed unusually quiet. The market square, usually filled with laughter and chatter, felt like a place where whispers feared to live. Word had spread, Lucas had fallen terribly ill overnight. He had gone to bed strong and healthy, but woke up weak, his skin pale, his eyes sunken, and his breath short. The village herbalist tried all her roots and leaves. Yet his condition did not improve. It was as though life itself was slowly draining from his body. Mama Lami sat by his bedside, tears flowing freely. "My son, speak to me," she begged, holding his frail hands. Lucas could barely open his mouth, and when he did, the words that came out were strange. She is calling me," he whispered weakly. "Who?" Mama Lami asked, shaking him gently. "The woman in the river, she is angry." At that moment, I swear the oil lamp in the corner flickered and went out on its own, even though there was no wind inside the room. Outside, a strange hum filled the air, like the low murmur of a drum being played deep underwater. By the time the elders heard what Lucas had said, their faces turned pale. Old Mama Ngozi, the oldest woman in the village, shook her head slowly. "This is no ordinary sickness. The boy's spirit is being pulled," she said in a voice that carried both fear and certainty. "Lami, did you promise anything to the river goddess?" The room fell silent. Lami swallowed hard but said nothing. Mama Ngozi leaned closer. "If you hide the truth, you will bury your son before the moon completes its circle." Finally, with trembling lips, Lami confessed everything, how she had gone to the river in her desperation, how the goddess had given her Lucas under one condition, and how she had ignored the promise. The elders were furious. Chief Aduro slammed his staff on the floor. "Woman, you played with a goddess as if she were a market woman bargaining for yam." But even in the heat of their anger, they knew time was running out. Lucas's breathing was getting weaker. His body was cold despite the blazing sun. Mama Ngozi stood up slowly, her walking stick tapping the ground. "The goddess will not take kindly to insults. If Lami does not make things right tonight, before the moon reaches its peak, the boy will not see the next dawn." The words hung heavy in the air. Lami fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Please, tell me what to do." Mama Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "You must go back to the river alone. You must beg. And this time, you must be ready to pay whatever price she asks, whether it is your pride, your freedom, or your life." The village held its breath as the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the rooftops. Everyone knew that night would decide whether Lucas lived or died. And as the moon slowly climbed into the sky, a cold wind swept through the village, carrying with it the distant sound of a woman's laughter from the riverbanks. This is where the river meets the ocean, and every secret rises to the surface like the foam on troubled water. The morning was quiet, too quiet. The village roosters crowed, but their sound seemed far away, as if swallowed by an unseen mist. Lucas had not slept all night. He could feel it, something was coming for him. He sat outside the hut, staring at the path that led to the river. His eyes were tired, but his heart was on fire. He had made up his mind. Inside, Lami knelt before the small shrine she had made years ago, the one she stopped visiting after Lucas was born. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched his childhood wrapper to her chest. "I will not let her take you, my son, I will not," she whispered. But the wind changed. It carried the scent of wet earth, the rumble of faraway thunder, and a faint, haunting song. The promise was made, the river remembers. The child belongs where the water flows. The villagers began shutting their doors, whispering prayers. Everyone knew. Everyone had been waiting for this day. Suddenly, the ground shook. The once distant song grew louder, and from the path came a figure clothed in shimmering water and flowing weeds, the river goddess herself. Her eyes were deep pools, swirling with both beauty and rage. "Lami." Her voice echoed, neither loud nor soft, but impossible to ignore. "The time has come. A debt long unpaid must be settled." Lami threw herself at the goddess's feet. "Please, spare my son. Take me instead." The goddess's gaze hardened. "You had your chance, woman. The boy was mine from the day I gave him life. You enjoyed the gift but spit on the covenant. Now, the river claims what is hers." Lucas stepped forward. If I go with you, will you leave my mother in peace?" The goddess tilted her head, intrigued. "Brave words, child of the tide. But once you enter my waters, there is no return." The villagers watched from a distance, some hiding behind trees, others peeking from doorways. No one dared move closer. Lami clung to Lucas's arm. "No. I would rather die than watch you disappear into that river." But Lucas gently pried her hands away. "Mama, you gave me life, and she gave me life. Maybe I belong to both of you. But I will not let fear decide my fate." He walked toward the goddess. The river's song grew louder. The air was heavy, almost unbreathable. Just as his foot touched the water's edge, something strange happened. The river stilled. The goddess's expression softened for the first time. "You have chosen to come willingly, not out of fear. That changes everything." She turned to Lami. "Your son has more honor than you ever showed. Because of him, I will spare him. But hear me, woman, break a promise to the river again, and you will not live to tell the tale." With that, she vanished into the mist, leaving only ripples on the water. The villagers slowly emerged, stunned. Lucas and Lami embraced, both shaking from the ordeal. That day, Lami learned that promises, once made, live longer than the people who speak them. And Lucas, well, he learned that courage is not in the absence of fear, but in walking toward it. Moral of the story: never make a promise you do not intend to keep, for even the river remembers. And to the young, honor will carry you further than beauty or strength ever could.